All right, folks. Hey, check out this diorama. I've gotten asked since I posted this photo quite a few times how I did the decals for the change machine and the Pac-Man machine. Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you not only how I did that, but how I textured and grimed it and made it look sort of old and abandoned and just altogether crappy. But, first I want to say a build like this causes me to, as a diorama builder, causes me to draw on all types of different tools and resources and ideas and stretch the limits of what I know and try things that I don't know, and in any build, it's easy just to say, okay, I'll just do a brick wall because I know how to do a brick wall. Okay, I'll do a concrete floor because I know how to do a concrete floor. I want to do things that are different, and I want to constantly be able to add new, tools and new skills to my bag of creative assets. And so, that's what I did here in this diorama. I was able to bring together, things that I built from foam and things that I designed in Fusion 360 to 3D print, graphics, grime, washes, textures, just so many different things to bring about a diorama like this that I feel a sense of fulfillment or satisfaction in knowing that I'm able to improve with each build. And for me, that's, part of the love of it. And also, I'm happy to be able to send this to the customer who commissioned me to build something for them to show and share and represent their business at a toy convention. That's awesome in and of itself. So at any rate, I'm going to share with you in this video just how I did the Space Ace and the graphics and the washes and all the stuff on this change machine and the Pac-Man machine. But at any rate, if you haven't done so, like and subscribe, follow the channel, Instagram, TikTok, all those different platforms. Let's get watching the video. Now that I've got this machine printed and cleaned and cured and primed, I'm just going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to trace around this piece of paper. I'm going to trace around the machine on this piece of paper. And this is going to be the template for my decals. That paper, I'm going to put in my scanner. I'm going to open Photoshop. It's a real technical way here. I'm going to open Photoshop and I'm going to scan that outline that I just traced into Photoshop. If you don't have Photoshop, I'm not sure then how you would do it. This is just the only way that I know how. There's other software editing out there, but in this tutorial, I'm using Photoshop because it's what I know. But once you get it into your computer, you can see it scanning over here. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can do layer masking. You can just create a selection, and you can see now that the file is in the computer. I'm going to kind of just flip it, what I did there. And I'm going to work on this side of it. I'm going to straighten it up a little bit too. It's a little bit cattywampus there. It's a little crooked, which actually doesn't even matter because, when I go to put the decal on, I'm going to put it on straight. So it doesn't matter if it's crooked in here. But we're going to select the magnetic lasso tool. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can select the pin tool. You can select the magnetic lasso tool. You can go in quick mask mode. There's just a million ways to do this. But for the sake of simplicity, we're going to use the magnetic lasso tool with a 0 feather on there. We don't want any feather on there. Just a real hard edge magnetic lasso. And then we're going to trace around. The magnetic lasso is going to automatically snap to that pencil mark because it's real easy to find it against the white paper background. So magnetic lasso will be perfect for this. We're just going to go ahead and trace right around that, and you can see each of the points snapping to the pencil outline, and that's all we're doing. We're just making an outline of this and we're going to cut it out. It's real technical thing here. Now you could do it, like I say, with a layer mask also, or a pin tool, if your selection was a lot more intricate than this, but this one is just really basically a big rectangle. And so we delete that. There you go. Now let's look for some graphics. I just go on Google and I do a quick search of whatever I think that would look cool to put in there. And I chose Dragon's Lair on one side and Space Ace on another. And I have a folder on my desktop that I store a bunch of different signs and logos and diorama ideas. I think that's actually what it's called, diorama ideas. So we'll take good old Dirk. There's Dirk from Dragon's Lair, and I'm going to use this. I got a couple different photos of him, but I liked that one, and I liked this Space Ace one. So we're going to open those in Photoshop and drag them over into our current document, and we're just going to drag Dirk below the top page. See the layers there? Bam. Almost bam. There we go. Catch up. Catch up, computer. The reason that it didn't catch up there is because I have my layer blend mode accidentally changed. So there we go. We'll change it back to normal. And now you can see Dirk behind the cutout. So we're just going to scale it. Alt-T or Control-T, transform, and drag it down to where it fits within the hole that we created with the magnetic lasso tool. And there's your graphic. That's it, man. It's not any harder than that. Scale it in there so it fits like you want. And once you're satisfied with the position of it in there, hit enter. We're looking good. We're going to flatten our document, save it as a JPG to whatever folder we want to save it to, back to the diorama ideas folder that I have. We'll close this Photoshop out, and after we push Control P, we'll print that bad boy out. And I love having a wireless printer. It'll print Bluetooth across the studio. It's so great. It's really awesome. So we'll save this document, print it, and I did, though, not on Dirk here, but on on Space Ace, I did go ahead and lower the saturation a bit, just because I wanted to look a bit older. But you can also do that just by dipping it in water, but it's just saves you a little ink if you do it in the program itself. Same thing here. We're just going to drag Space Ace below the cutout, and here we will, in this on Space Ace, we'll adjust the saturation so that we bring it down a little bit so it looks a little more pale and old. But and that's really it. We just got both sides now of the you saw me hit Control T, transform, flip horizontal, and this allows me to print out the other side. So we've got both sides of the change token machine, and that's it, man. We've got them printed out, and you want to use a really sharp blade, and you want to cut just a little bit to the inside of the artwork, because we don't want it to go on right up to the edge on the change token machine. We want to leave a black border showing through, and you can see on the change token machine that I painted the sides black. So I want the graphic just a little bit smaller than the actual side of the cabinet, the change token machine itself. And so we'll just cut a little bit to the inside of the graphic. And with a nice sharp blade and a good metal ruler, I have bad times with plastic rulers because I actually end up just cutting into the ruler. It's, yeah, not good. So, and that's it here. We'll just cut this. Making sure my line is good. There we are. And don't try to cut it by tracing around it. I cut each line separate as I rotate the paper. Gives me a nice, super crisp, sharp corners. And so don't try to trace it out with the X-Acto as you cut it. Just make each pass and rotate the paper. Once you make your cuts, I just kind of dry fit it to make sure I got enough black border around the edge, and I decide that I don't, and so I go ahead and just trim a little bit more off. I want a nice black edge around the graphic there, so just get out the X-Acto again and go ahead and trim a little bit off. But using Photoshop really makes that really simple. To be able just to drag any graphic you want and scale it under the the hole that you cut out with the magnetic lasso tool, just you can literally pull any graphic you want off of the web and create whatever kind of decals you want. Now keep in mind too, these are not decals, they're not adhesive. It's just printed on cardstock paper, a heavy cardstock paper that I will use PVA glue mixed with some water, as you'll see here in a little bit. I like the size of that. It's going to give me a good black border around the edge. So once I'm satisfied with that, then we'll do the same thing for a good old Space here, or Ace. Space Ace. I loved those games, man. They were just so cool. They were like you were playing a cartoon, man. I mean, it just was. When these games came out, man, you just wanted to, play them. They were so awesome. The storyline, they're just really incredible, man. 80s was a great time to be in the arcades, playing cool games. Moon Patrol, Zaxxon, Joust, Defender, Galaga, Star Wars, and then Return of the Jedi, Hamburger Time, Bagman, Dig Dug, Centipede. Gosh, man, just all those games, man, of my youth were really fun to go spend hours in the arcade. But we'll just go ahead and continue to cut these lines. Think twice, cut once. I didn't print out any extras, so and I could have I did print them on both on the same paper, and so you want to try to conserve material, so I just printed them both on the same page. And once again, we'll just dry fit it on there and make sure that we've got enough black edging around the sides that I'm going to be happy with. And we're not, so we're going to cut some more off of it. That's why he's making a face. Space Ace is making that face. That was a cool game. Space Ace, and still I had downloaded on my phone Dragon's Lair and Space Ace back when I had an Android phone. I imagine you could still do it on iPhone, but just to see those graphics and those and play that storyline again and stuff, just really cool. Brings back a lot of memories for me. But dry fitted on there. We're looking good. Right on. Now we're going to get to gluing some stuff down. And for those people that might have, machines where you could print these things out on like clear, print it onto some sort of adhesive backed material or something, that's great. I don't. And so like I say, I printed on cardstock and then I just glue it down with PVA glue. Here, I'm going to make some graphics for the front that basically just says like change or cash or whatever it is I put on there. So I'm just measuring the face, the height and the width of the face. And the tool that I'm using there is just a micrometer. It's a digital caliper. You can use a ruler. You can use a tape measure. I just happen to have a caliper because I make a lot of stuff that I need real specific measurements for, like in millimeters and inches, and this just does that for me, and it's really precise, because sometimes when I look at the ruler I don't get it as precise, and this just helps me do that. So let's get some PVA glue on a paintbrush, and you can also add a little water to this and help it move around a little bit more on the model, and just get a junky paintbrush. Don't get one that you want to keep, because sometimes I forget to rinse it out and then it stays there full of glue and I end up ruining it and throwing it away. So find a cheap one. We'll paint the graphic itself just around the very edges, and then I put some on the machine there, and put that bad boy onto the side of the change machine, and there's enough glue on there that it's going to allow you to slide it around and position it where you want it. And the cardstock is thick enough that it's not going to tear while you do that. If you were just to use a regular, thin printer paper, not only would I think the PVA glue cause it to wilt and maybe cause the ink to move around a little bit and bleed, or you'd run the risk when you're trying to reposition it of tearing it with a thin printer paper. I just think this cardstock works great. It has a good texture to it. It's thick, and it's durable. So, and that's all we're doing here. We're just pressing out the sides, making sure it's real good and flat on there and in the right position. And we'll do the same thing with good old Dirk. What kind of name is that, Dirk? Who came up with these names? So here I just put it on the paper first. Doesn't really matter as long as it gets where it's going. Make sure you drag the glue all the way out to the edges. That's important. We want glue to stick to the edges. We don't want this to peel up where we want it to peel up, but only where we want it to peel up at. So, and then I use tweezers because my fingers are chubby and it's hard to pick that up off of the paper. So there you go. Just position that on there and get it put right where you want it. Slide it around a little bit. Seeing that cardstock really just helps keep that print from moving or warping or twisting or wilting. And it looks nice and thick too, like a decal would. Right on, man. We got 2 sides done. How cool is that? And it's just PVA glue and paper, cardstock. So you don't have to go out and buy special stuff. If you've got only printer paper, then you can use printer paper. Just probably use a little less glue. Now we're going to cut out, or I've already cut out the change machine, and I cut those out in various sizes. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll make a couple different sizes that are real close to each other, just in case I goofed up when I measured. And here, this goes on the inside of the machine, and so you have to use tweezers to get in there and be able to place it where you want it. And then when I put my fingers on there, sometimes I twist it and make it crooked, so I got to straighten it back up. But yeah, this is just cardstock paper and just a regular old inkjet printer. Just got to measure and make sure that you're getting a good fit wherever you're putting your graphic. That's all. That's the key to this. And then not leaving any white. You want to cut right up to the ink line on the graphic. You don't want any of the leftover cardstock on the graphic. You want to cut right up to the ink. You don't want any white edging around it. That kind of kills the idea that it's a printer paper, not a decal. So at any rate, and that's just, we do the same thing. Trim and glue and trim and glue, and that's it, man. And they come out looking really great. They come out looking like decals. I think they do. Other people think they do also because they ask me how I do the decals. So this video is going to show you just how I did it, and hopefully you'll be able to print out some graphics for whatever builds you want also. Once I get that placed where I want it, I just kind of wiggle it around a little bit, make sure all the glue is pressed out from under there and there's nothing that's going to cause it to like warp or buckle or wilt or whatever. Wipe the excess glue there off of the sides. There's still some there. Don't worry about it. We'll get a paintbrush on there or something and we'll get it off. No big deal. Easy enough. And you can make whatever graphics you want using this method, long as you can make an outline or measure or trace and get it into your computer. Now you can make a template with it. There we go. And now that you see kind of how the graphics part of it is done, we're going to go ahead and go through and start to distress it a little bit and add some washes. And this here I'm using is just dollar store black, not dollar store, but Walmart black paint. I dip it in the black paint, then I dip my brush in water and I mix it together and I just drag it around where I think there would be some staining and some natural, sediment buildup, and add more water, move it around, damp it off, and just move that black paint around a little bit until I get pools and stains in places that I want them. And it's a real inexpensive way to black wash something. Then we'll just dab it off if we don't want really hard pools or puddle stains with hard edges. we'll just dab it off a little bit, or add more water, move it around. And that's really what I do on the top of the machine here. And for all the, well, most all of the black washing or staining or washes that I do, whether it's on a brick wall or it's on a, machine 3D print like this, I do it the same way. It just starts off with a really watered down acrylic paint that I just build up the values of the paint, the values of the color until I get the effect I'm after. So, and here we've got some other washes that I create, some greens and different washes that I have. And I'll just, dip my brush in and I'll move that around in varying opacities or values or whatever you want to call it. And I just build up in light passes different layers and apply it in different angles, different amounts of varying amounts of water. And this helps me build up the idea that there's texture or, aging that's happened to the top of this machine. Same thing here to the front of the machine where the aluminum facing is. I'll just black wash that or whatever color wash, you want to put on there. I get the heat gun out because I like the water to evaporate quickly. I don't like to waste a bunch of time waiting for water to dry. So we'll just make a few passes with the heat gun, and that helps speed that process up so that I can continue on. I like to make the most use of my time, and tools like a heat gun help me do that. There we go. Keep that heat gun moving so we don't cause any damage to the actual model itself. Now we're going to go ahead and start distressing and staining and washing the decals on the side. And I add some washes and I do a couple different things. I kind of figure how I want to approach it. I'll go ahead and scratch it up. I have a tool that is like an old screwdriver where I grind the tip off and just make it kind of like a pick. So here we've got some black wash. I'm just creating some random drips and some random discoloration on the edges with some watered down black. You could do watered down brown, whatever you want. And I do it around the tops and bottoms. Then I grab that tool out, that little pick, and I just start scratching it up. I just start making some scratches in there, hitting the edges and the corners with it on the inside of the print itself. And once I think I've got a good amount of scratches and scrapes and stuff in there, and I just hit both sides with it. And I'll end up wetting the decals to cause some separation in the paper layers. And then I just peel them back. I don't peel it all the way back down to the machine necessarily, I just peel some layers back to show some separation in the decal. And then also some spots I do show some machine through the decals, just that this is old and peeling and it's had some water damage to it and stuff like that. So see, I think right here, if I could get my big hand out of the way, there we go. Just scratching down there a little bit, dragging that down with the edge of the blade. And we'll wet this bad boy up. And it's usually the multiple things that you do to create one effect, the staining, the washing, the wetting, the peeling, the scratching. It's hard to make something look bad, but make it look bad in a way that is good. So that's what we do. We just add some water here, and that's just paintbrush water. It's my rinse water, and it's perfect because it adds a slight discoloration to the graphic, as well as wets it so that we're able to peel it back a little bit. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Don't throw away your rinse water. See, there we peel it back a little bit, just cool. Add a little bit more water on there. peel that up a little bit. A lot of little steps. You know, people don't really take the time to think how much maybe time is invested in a machine like this. I mean, it's a 4-hour print time, and then you've got to paint it and you've got to add the graphics. It's a lot to it. All right, so now that you kind of saw how I did the graphics, let's look at this Pac-Man machine, because this one here was quite a bit of a challenge, because you can see the different areas that there are graphics applied. I had to create those banners and marquees and screen, edge graphics and cabinet graphics, not just the size of the graphic, but the actual graphic content too, especially like on the controller and around the screen edges, because there aren't any, I mean, you can't scale the current graphics to fit, you can't just go Pac-Man, cabinet graphics or screen, border graphics, and then, all the graphics come up that you can buy, but you can't scale those to the size of this machine with its dimensions the way that I designed it. So I had to take some stuff and, blend things together and, rearrange things and create graphics that would not only fit, but that when scaled to the sizes I needed would look appropriate. And so that's kind of was a bit of a challenge in that, but the process is the same. I take the graphic after I run it through the scanner and print it out, and I cut it. Then I put a little glue on the side of the cabinet, and I did do a base coat here of primer and yellow on the cabinet itself. I had to mix that color. It's just a little, it's just a yellow with a couple drops of red in there, and until I got the actual yellow of the Pac-Man that I thought looked closest to the Pac-Man. Here I just dip a little water on the brush and run it through the glue just to keep it wet and kind of able to move around. Now here I dip the water, I dip the graphic in the water because I think that that I want the graphic to be faded, not necessarily, water damaged or anything, but I just really want an overall fade to the graphic. And with the inkjet ink, you can see some left in the tub there. It definitely gives a different look than if you just desaturate the graphic in Photoshop and print it. It just has an overall more even faded appearance, and doing that with the cardstock is a lot easier than trying to do that with just a printer paper graphic. So if you're going to do this on your build, definitely go for the cardstock paper, because it just has a better, you're able to handle it better without the fear of tearing it so easy. And there you can see on the paper, I've got other graphics and things that I've made. That's going to go under the screen. I've got a couple different size marquees because sometimes you mess up, so you want to print a couple out on this at the same time, and it's just a matter of measuring, then going into Photoshop and using your your units, your rulers and stuff, and creating images the size of the area that you're going to place them. And I did think about making a single, like a trifold graphic that went from the bottom part of the screen and came down around under the controller onto the front of the screen, but I just opted for, since I was going to grime this up, I could hide a few of the seams with grime and dirt and streaks. And so to make life a little bit easier, I did that in 3 individual banners, and you can see there on the paper that I've got 3 different ones, and so the sides of the screen, that was a bit of a challenge, because in my planning when I made the design, I didn't really account. I said, well, I'm just going to make it with a busted screen, so we'll create an inset so the screen will fit in there, but I didn't give much thought to the edges of the screen. And like a knucklehead, I forgot that there's graphics that usually go around the edge of a screen. It's either, it's either just like some instructions, or it's some just random, complimentary graphics, or it could, I wanted something around there. I didn't want to just leave it yellow because that would look just like unfinished, and I wouldn't like that. So I had to really create some thin graphics and measure around each side of the screen. And yeah, it was time consuming. This machine, I'm going to tell you, it took 6 hours to print. Then, I did my cleaning on it, and I washed it in alcohol and cured it. So we've got, a total investment of time there of say 6.5 hours, and then another hour and a half or so to design it. So we're already at like 6.5, 7, 8.5 hours. Okay. And then all of this took probably another 6 hours. This machine, I'm not joking, probably was easily an 11-hour job. And so when people ask why I don't sell the machine like this, because you couldn't pay me enough to make another one. No, I mean, I could, and I've got the kind of more streamlined now, and I could get it done. You just can't get around print times. That is long. Now that the machine is designed, the longest part of this is going to be the print time. So I could knock a machine out if I wanted to, a lot quicker. But see, there's the edge, the edge of the screen graphics. And just once again, using the, and I made all that in Photoshop. I had to create those graphics, ones that would scale to those skinny dimensions and look appropriate. But what was I going to say? I forget what I was going to say, because I do that often. But look at this machine. I mean, it's really coming together nice. I've got a piece of plexiglass in there that I put a little glue on there. I paint the back of it black because I want it to be like a dead monitor. You've got the glass, and then you've got the actual monitor behind the glass. And so I kind of wanted to go for that look that gives it just a little bit more depth. And you can see here my palette there, which is made up of the pink scrap piece of foam. It's just a few different colors, and I've got a tub of water there with a couple different brushes, and I just go through and I add watered down black to the areas that I want to knock down the newness of them, and that's all I do. I just create different washes right there on the spot as I'm brushing. If it looks too dark, add a little more water. If it looks too watered down, add a little more paint. And that's kind of just how I build the washes and get all that. I'm adding glue here because I'm going to add a little dirt, a little fine stucco from a 50-pound sack in my garage. It's just a little watered down glue. And then I'll add a wash of brown to the top of that, really watered down brown, and I'll just add a drop right onto the dirt pile there, and it just colors that dirt pile to make it not look like stucco gray from a 50-pound sack. So this was a fun machine to do. It was my first machine to do also, and there was so much that I learned in doing this. I mean, just when you think about the shapes and the patterns and the things that you have to do to create, and just the design of a cabinet, that's the right height and the right width, and the coin slots and even the recesses for the coins to go in. And I mean, there was a lot of little details in this machine that I'm really happy with, that I was able to do. And I wanted it to be nice. I wanted it to look really good, something that I would take a picture with. It's going to go represent, somebody's business at a convention. And I really want that to be a nice piece of art. Here I'm using a product called Streaking Grime, and I use it often. It's for creating streaks and grimes. Once you wash your product with watered down paints and stuff, you can go in with this. It's a 2-product kind of thing you need. One is the white mineral spirits, which is that right there in the bottle. You apply the streaking grime where you want it, sparingly, let it dry. Then you go back through the streaking grime with a moist brush containing that white mineral spirits, and then you just drag the streaks down or whatever direction you want, and it creates a lot of that really cool grimy streaking grungy stuff, and I totally dig that. Here we've got a little piece of armature beading wire slipped up into a like a rubber. I think it's something to do with beading. I bought it in the beading section of Walmart, but putting that armature wire in there helps maintain the form of an electrical cord that I want to look like it was torn out of a wall. So I'm opening the beading tube up there, and I'm shoving in some copper wire, and that way we got the end of the wire. The end of the cord looks like, you know, the cord was torn out of a wall, and it's in an abandoned arcade, and this cord has been ripped out of the wall, showing the wires. And you know, these big machines have these little vent screens on the back. These cabinets hold in a lot of heat, and so they got a vent. And I'm just creating that also, little extra detail from some grating that I have for, I think that grating there is for auto body repair, but you can use, they've got different screens that you can buy at the Home Depot. You can buy, you know, drywall screens. You can buy this here I happen to have on hand, from a dent I fixed in my van. But I mean, you can just use things that look like what you want, and there's so many tools to pull from. You know, you just got to have an imagination. So I wrap the wire around the X-Acto handle here to give it a little curly Q in there. Then I apply what's called, what is it called? It's a rusting corrosion texture from AK Terrains also, and I just apply a little bit to the screen, just in the areas to hide the hot glue a little bit, and to look like there's some sediment and grimy, rusty kind of build up on the back there, because over time of these not being used, they've sort of degraded in their appearance, and that's the look I was after. And fortunately, in doing decayed, grimy, grungy looking stuff, there's a lot that you can do to cover up you know, seams and imperfections in mistakes and things like that. And so if you know, like in this example, hiding the hot glue, I could have used a regular PVA glue and you wouldn't have seen it, but it would have taken longer to dry. And since I knew I was going to be putting, you know, rust and sediment on the back of this screen, I went for hot glue. Though it was more visible, it dried quicker, but I knew I could cover it up. So there's a lot that you can play with when you're doing this kind of thing. That's not to say go slap rust powder on everything and hide all the imperfections. You want to build it right, but you know, you can kind of play around with the materials that you use, because you know that you know the end result that you're after. And at the end of the day, I produced a really cool machine. Two machines, a Frogger. You can see the Frogger there, a dual action Frogger, a dual player Frogger, and the Pac-Man, and the change machine. And there's my wife on the screen of my phone. Anyway, folks, hey, I appreciate you watching. I hope you found some value in this. Try this out, man. If you know, build something you've never built before, use products you've never built before, and create something exciting. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.